Hello, fight fans. I'm that boxing writer, Jeremy Herriges, here with BoxRaw founder and CEO, Ben Amanna. Ben, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. How you
So
doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really inspired by your story, very interested in it. How did the idea of BoxRaw pop into your head? Like, what was the first moment that you had the name and you had this idea? Describe that.
Yeah, the first moment when I realized there was need for a brand, I was training for a fight.
Hmm.
Um, it was coming off of like a previous business which had failed. I was running down the street in a shitty Adidas tracksuit. And I remember thinking that I wanted people to know that I was training for a fight. I was proud to be a boxer. Yeah, anyone seeing me running on the side of the road would just assume that I'm, running for whatever reason. And that was the moment I realized and sort of started to delve in further that there wasn't a brand that represented boxers. The name BoxRaw was actually the name of a charity white collar boxing event company that I had. It was running for about maybe a year and a half before that. When it came to the BoxRaw as you know it, and sort of trying to find the name for that, I think I spent like 2 weeks trying to figure out a name, and to no avail. And I thought I'll just run with BoxRaw. So there wasn't like a fancy story around that. It was more just out needing to push forward. So I ran with BoxRaw. Yeah, the initial inception where it came from, the sport just wasn't represented. How I knew it to be. The brands that were there before us, they just seemed to focus on the end result, fight night. But to me, it was the journey to get to that point which really wasn't being celebrated, and that was really what was most magical. But everyone just seems to disregard that. So now I really set out to try and sell that lifestyle, to a broader market and show boxing for what I knew it to be, versus just this elitist sport, which was you can only partake in it, if you're part of this elitist group. But really, growing up in boxing from the age of 12, it was much more than that. There was people from all different types of, backgrounds, abilities, and, more so people doing it for different reasons. Not everyone was doing it just to compete. I wanted to sort of shift that narrative.
How it's, I think a lot of people have great ideas, but putting them into motion and actually making them a success are two different things. How did you take BoxRaw as a concept and really get the wheels working to where you're connected with Lomachenko and Usyk and all of these fighters? How did you get it from point A to point B?
Yeah, good question, man. There wasn't like it's hard to say there was one particular thing. I think, first of all, it stems from the idea of actually building a brand, and building a community. We never set out just to sort of to sell product. It was more about the why, and it took maybe about a year and a half on social media before we launched the actual brand, to actually build up enough recognition. And then once we actually launched it, it was just about being authentic with these boxers. I've come, from a strong history of boxing,
Mhm.
from a young age. So I was able to connect with these guys, and I think where other brands typically wouldn't be able to connect. I understood the sport. So I think being genuine with these guys really helped. Having solid product obviously helped as well. But more so, I think from point A to point B, it was just, I was a sponge, man. I was reading every article out there about how to launch a brand, how to do e-commerce, everything about how to produce clothing, manufacturing, dealing with suppliers internationally. So all sorts come together. So it really was like a lot of background work. As I said, 2 years to build the brand, and it was only like a year and a half before it really started to kick off. We're
Mhm.
just over 3.5 years old now. Um, it, the cliche, it was a lot of hard work in the early days.
I've seen you talk about it in other interviews, the business behind it, as far as how hard it is, warehousing, um, getting the manufacturing done, putting a team together. When you have all those pieces set and you say, okay, I want to show others my vision. How do you get a guy like Lomachenko and Usyk on board based on your vision? How do you say, hey, this is something you might be interested in?
Very good question, man. I mean, I think fundamentally you probably have to ask them to get their idea. But I mean, from my side, I try and just treat every relationship like any relationship I deal with in normal life. I try and be authentic.
Hmm.
Um, I think in this space where there's a lot of corruption around and people can't tend to trust a lot of people, I, you know, I'm just myself. I tell them where it is I want to get to. Where I think they can get to as well. If we work together, I think usually if you start any business relationship up like that, then it's a recipe for success. So I think just being genuine from the get go. Having solid product to fall back on, so they know you're not just talking out of your ass.
Hmm.
And then yeah, just being me really. It's hard for me to answer that. You probably have to answer them,
Hmm.
ask them why they chose to work with me. But yeah, from my side, it was just authenticity.
When you obviously you have a lot of fighters that are representing the BoxRaw name. I saw an image on Instagram, and there was Jermal Charlo was rocking, I think, a sleeveless cutout of your shirt. Do you consider them, are they endorsement deals, or are they just kind of saying, hey, I support what you're doing, thanks for the product, I'm going to rock it out? How does that relationship or
Yeah,
that bond forge?
yes, it's a big misconception in the market. Actually, people think that we pay all these boxes to wear our gear. We don't. We
Hmm.
haven't paid a penny to this day in any endorsements. The only people we've got like formal deals with are the people we have collaborations with. Whereby
Hmm.
we work on a share agreement for what we create in their name. But all the boxes you see wearing, they rock it because they want to rock it.
Hmm.
I think the brand speaks, I think the product speaks, so they choose to wear it.
When you start getting involved with a collaboration, like I said, I watched the YouTube video with you and Lomachenko before. I think it was before the Jose Pedraza fight.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I was watching that one. Do you start to, when you work with someone that closely, do you form a friendship and a relationship with that boxer, and kind of move beyond the business to a friendship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the blessings that, with what I'm doing. I get to work with the people that, first of all, I used to watch on TV,
Hmm.
get sort of engaged in business terms. And then what starts as a business relationship turns into more of a friendship.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm over the moon by being in this position, and being able to sort of call people that start with business partners, friends there on down the line. But I have to be very careful. That I'm still there to perform. So while we could be friendly and we're trying to have a good relationship, at the
Hmm.
same time, I'm there to do the job. In the same way their job is to compete and win. On their side, my job is to make this workable. Financially viable, commercially viable for them. And not even just on the finances, something that can build their brand value. So yes, but I also don't lose track of sort of what I'm there to do as well.
Hmm. Obviously, you've got certain athletes that you've worked with. Who are the primary athletes that you would say that are representing your brand the most, or maybe that you have the closest relationship with, that are helping take BoxRaw to the next level?
Yeah, good question. Right now we've got a collaboration which is about to drop with Javante Davis.
Mm.
So he's a big part of our brand right now. And there's many of us. We've got Usyk, we've got a collaboration. We've got Mick Conlan, collaboration with him. And then there's other ones who you probably don't see as much by way of collaborations, but one things that are in the pipeline that we're trying to work towards at the moment. I actually can't name too many names on that part. But other boxes that have been sort of pivotal in helping our growth in the early steps. Pretty much the entire Olympian team from GB and USA in the early days were all sort of there from the get-go and helped sort of drive that initial growth. Joshua Guazzi, Shakur Stevenson, Clarissa Shields, Josh Kelly, um, Joe Cordina. Both US and UK teams were very helpful in the initial steps, and even to this day, we've got some other sort of prime talent, Dillian White. The list for me to say that as sort of key individuals would be tough.
Mhm.
Just because it really is such a big community within BoxRaw, and like, so many boxes wearing it. I'm scared that I'm going to say one and forget another, and then someone else is going to get offended. But no, I'm not saying that to try and keep people happy. It really is the truth is that we don't pay for the endorsements, so we really rely on the community actually just getting on board with what it is that we're doing.
Talking about your vision for BoxRaw and your aim, I think it's very unique about how you talk about the lifestyle of a fighter, and that word lifestyle, right? Rather than fight night, performance on fight night. When I think of the performance end, I think of like an Everlast, but it seems like you're kind of carving out this area where it's year round. It's in the gym. It's, walking to and from the gym. It's not so much just about that fight night. It's about everything that builds up to that. Was it hard to kind of separate yourself, or at least get others to see what you wanted to be, separate from like an Everlast or a Rivals Boxing? Do you feel like it was hard to get others to see that vision?
Actually, no. It's I've never, and I don't mean disrespect to any of the other brands, and in particular rival. Rush is a very good friend of mine actually.
Hmm.
I've got no respect for any of the other brands actually, but I never really saw them as competition. I wasn't really trying to enter that territory of just sort of focusing on that one event, on just the fight night. So even from the get go, like if you scroll down our Instagram page to go even before we launched, on day of launch, I think we had like 20,000 followers, which
Hmm.
was still substantial, 3.5 years ago, at the time. Now, 20,000 isn't a lot, but it was a community that really showed me because our engagement level was just through the roof. I was doing all the copy, all the posts on social media, and it was me talking to, as if I was talking to the guys I used to box with, talking about the nuances of being in a boxing gym, the camaraderie between the people that you train with, between you and the coach and so on. So, straight away, we started to build traction and people start to recognize actually, yeah, these guys actually understand the sport. It's not just a one-time thing for them. So I don't think it was hard from the get-go to differentiate ourselves. And even still to this day, I don't look at them in any sort of way where I'm taking inspiration or, yeah, I think they all got lazy. I think they all
Hmm.
surpass. Fundamentally, I'm here to try and take over the entire sport. So.
As far as when you start off in the UK, I assume that you build relationship with boxers around the UK first. When did you start venturing over to fighters from other countries? And was that something that mostly happened through electronic means, social media? How did you start to connect to further out distances?
Yeah, it's funny you asking that actually, because it's actually the opposite. We actually, well, we did start off in the UK, but I never looked at international markets as like an international market. Like we live in a globalized world whereby anyone can access anyone now through social media and online platforms. Shopify was pivotal in our international success. So from the get go, the US was a big part of our strategy, and the majority of the photos we were taking were already in the US.
Mhm.
Boxes we started to partner with in the initial early steps were in the US. And I always looked at boxing as a global sport. I didn't confine it to one particular country. So yeah, from the word go, we were targeting boxes all over the world. France, Germany, even Japan. Within the first couple of months. Um, so yeah, I didn't really look at international barriers as a barrier to entry as such.
Mhm. Looking at the the 21st century and obviously the impact that social media has on everything, it really seems like your brand's success has been widely aided by your ability to navigate the social realm of things. Obviously, now in a pandemic, a lot of brick and mortar type stores are really suffering, at least here within the United States. It's really hitting a lot of businesses hard. Do you see that social media as pivotal to keeping your brand thriving in a time when things are rough right now? And how have you been navigating the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, firstly, yeah, absolutely, right? Like people
Mm-hmm.
can't travel as much. So COVID hit us at the perfect timing. We weren't too big. I think we had around 21 staff at the start of COVID. Our headcount costs weren't too high. We were running a very lean budget, cheap offices. We're still in these cheap offices. So our overheads weren't that great when COVID hit. Whereas other brands would obviously, and in particular the boxing space, all these guys have heavily invested in the retail space or retailers or resellers of their products. We're all direct to consumer, so we weren't hit with any of that. So we were able to be a lot more nimble when COVID hit, and we managed to scale. We're now 36 staff, so we've really grown. We've sort of tripled in size in the space of a year, actually. And COVID, although it hurt us to start with, we certainly felt the effects of the recession, lack of spending, but it forced us to focus. We went into 2020 with 26 goals. We were stretched so thin, man. It's going off in so many directions, and suddenly COVID hits. We can't launch half the collaborations we want to launch. We can't travel to as many countries we want to travel to. People aren't spending their money on things that we'd like them to spend them on. So we had to just will it down to really what matters and focus on what mattered most. And that in itself, it shifted the whole trajectory of our company culture and sort of how we worked and how we saw how we should sort of prioritize things. And yeah, making that change was that was pivotal for us. So one of the best things that happened to us. Now with social media, yeah, I mean, still to this day, I don't think we've got a full grip of it. We've certainly know to a degree what we're doing, but there's a lot more we want to achieve in the online realm. And we're working on some really cool things actually in the background. by way of online platforms, media platforms, and things like this.
Mm-hmm. As far as your product goes, obviously you have, the t-shirts, you have the sweatshirts, track suits, you even have some performance gear. How do you, as far as your products, do you see yourself getting into more of the performance line, boxing gloves, headgear, that type of thing? Or are you keeping it to kind of casual wear? Or are you embodying all those markets?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like we're currently undergoing like a sort of 5x increase in product offering, which will be launching over the next couple of weeks, actually. That's specifically in the sportswear space. In terms of gloves, like, I've been working on gloves for over 3.5 years now. It's coming to 4 years now. We've probably close to over 250 samples now. We're making them in house to try to protect everything. We've got 6 patent points launching on them. The boxing glove space is an interesting one, man. It blows my mind. And the boxing gloves have been made the same way for hundreds of years, and no one's tried to innovate. And that in itself just it shouts to me that the industry's full of dinosaurs. The innovations that have happened are very minuscule. So we've got some really cool developments happening with the gloves. We've been testing with different champions. Back to the drawing board. We're really trying to make sure that we make the best glove possible. So we've got some really cool tech inside of the glove as well. And same on the rest of the equipment space, skipping ropes, groin guards, head guards, are the new things that haven't even been released before. Some new innovations we're bringing to the boxing space. Listen, I want to take over the sport, man. I want if you say BoxRaw, you say boxing. You say boxing, you say BoxRaw. The same way these are the world champions I work with, look at their competitors that they're about to fight. That's how I look at these other brands. I'm here to win. I'm not here to just sit on the sideline and just be a clothing brand or just be a tracksuit brand or just be a glove brand. I want to become the sport. I think the sport's got so much to offer that no one's really done to this day. So that's really where I see my sort of purpose.
Looking at your website, obviously there's a lot of really cool things that you guys have on your website. What would you say is your number one seller? What's the hot item right now on BoxRaw's website?
Right now it's the sauna suit. That was a big success actually over lockdown. I think people wanted to sort of intensify their workouts, in a confined space. And even me, typically I don't really train in a sauna suit, but I was training in a sauna suit during lockdown. It just helped warm up joints, get me to that sort of fat boy burning zone quicker, and just sort of emulated being in a more of a physical environment than a bedroom. Right now the sauna suits are quite hard. But come winter, our tracksuits will start shooting up again. Our hoodies and things like that.
Mm-hmm. As far as the end game, success, the big goals that you have. You say you want to take over the sport of boxing. You want the name BoxRaw to be synonymous with boxing. What will be that moment you think when you look and you say, all right, I think I did it? What has to happen for that to occur?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I'm not trying to flop out on this question. I don't know if I'll ever get there. I think I've ever done it. I think for me to say that it's not like, a boxer will say they're going to win a belt and, they say that they've been a world champion. For me, this stretches much further than just the sport of boxing. The vision is to be the reason why the world got into boxing, and that's what we want to be pioneering, so there's certain milestones to get to that point, things like launching gloves, certain revenue goals, certain staff count goals, the idea of eventually going public. It's ultimately to compete with the big boys out there, like the Adidases, the Under Armours of this world. In the same way they capitalized on their niche sports from the get-go, whether it was Nike with athletics, Adidas, soccer, Under Armour, American football, Montclair, skiing, bands, skateboarding, it's been done with every sport in history, apart from boxing. This is now we're at the start of this golden era of boxing, whereby boxing is getting, it's growing on a larger scale, not just from the sport point of view, but also the lifestyle element, box size, box fit, white collar boxing, amateur boxing. We're trying to pioneer bringing boxing back into schools now. And, be it that. We're doing that in the UK and trying to the US governments, all over the local governments. We want to build boxing gyms all over the world. We've got a charity called Boxing is Love, whereby we're really trying to take the sport to a wider market who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to do so. So for me to say that we'll get to this one point, I'm gonna be happy. I don't think I'll ever reach that level of sort of success or perfection whereby I'm like, I've done it. Yeah. I mean, listen, I might change my mind, but I've been involved in previous businesses, and what I thought was going to make me happy didn't make me happy. You know,
Mhm.
I used to think life was a chasing cash game. You know, finally I got cash, and then it didn't make me happy. You know, and I
Mhm.
was so set on that for 3 years of just, oh, I want to make cash, and then you get the cash. It's like, for what? You know, I think the most important thing is that I'm enjoying the journey along the way, you know, which I am. You know, I've got an incredibly great team around me, who I consider family. You know, we try and emulate, you know, the culture of boxing gym in the workplace as well. You know, there's not so much of a hierarchy as to, you know, as such of anyone can challenge anyone. I'll have interns that's telling me off. You know, Ben, you said you were going to do this, you didn't do it. You know, I think that design's shit. Ben, why are you doing that? That's a stupid idea. You know, it's
Mhm.
have that feeling here, and that's, you know, it makes it special. And I think that's the most important thing for anyone, you know, when they're launching a brand or any business, is that have your goals, but don't ever think that when you get to that goal, that's going to be, you know, that's going to necessarily be what defines success. Because if you, when you get there, and you
Do I got you there, Ben? Oh, yeah, you cut out on me for a second there.
where did you lose me?
um, it was literally like just like the last 3 or 4 seconds.
I was just saying, yeah, you know, it's hard to sort of say there's a level of success you'll get to, and that's what's going to be, okay, I've made it. You know, we've
Hmm.
got certain milestones, but yeah, I kind of advise against that just from my own experiences of putting things on that pedestal. Because by the time you get there, sometimes it doesn't bring that same feeling you thought it was going to bring. And at
Hmm.
that point, it can be a very dark and lonely place, man. So I'm just enjoying the journey, man. Like, I'm really, you know, I've got the same enthusiasm I had, you know, 3 years ago when we started out, you know, and I hope to, you know, maintain that enthusiasm as we push forward, even as we start to achieve the goals, you know.
I thought it was really intriguing when you talked about getting boxing back into schools and then also talking about boxing gyms. Is that is that something you see more as a, especially the boxing gyms, is that something that you see more as like a charitable endeavor, or is like a business model that you'd actually like to have like BoxRaw gyms? And then how are, going to the school, not to ask like 5 questions in one, which is what I'm doing. How about, how are you approaching trying to get boxing into schools as well?
Yeah, so to answer the first question, so we've got a charity called Boxing is Love. It's a 501c3 registered charity.
Hmm.
That stems from, if I'm saying my vision is to be the reason why the world got into boxing, I can't disregard a third of the world's population because they don't have access to the sport. You know, so we started up in Liberia. First went to Liberia about 2.5 years ago, um, and you know, I just realized that that was actually the purpose. You know, that's our mission. If we're such a sort of purpose-driven brand, we can't just do it on the outset, you know, towards a commercial customer where they can bring revenue back. Like, we wouldn't be true to our core, and that it comes back to the, you know, one of the very first questions you asked is about how do you relate to these guys, and you know, how are these relationships been forming? It's because we're authentic. You know, we're not just saying we want to be the reason why the world got into boxing and doing a few cool boxing videos with some cool boxers, and you know, we actually live and breathe this shit. You know, so it's a big part of what we do. You know, a lot of the company time and resources goes into development of that program. You know, unfortunately, we haven't been able to do a lot of stuff on that this year since COVID hit. But with the schools, again, that kind of all got halted due to COVID. Talks are starting to pick up again now. With schools, it's an interesting one about the angle we have to take, because boxing was already in schools around sort of 40, 50 years ago. And then some wise ass decided that boxing wasn't good for kids. You know, I come from a pretty shitty background where, you know, I got in a lot of trouble growing up, you know, and I witnessed firsthand what boxing did for people. Like, I got into boxing to learn how to fight. I had no intention of wanting to compete, you know, wanting to actually fall in love with the sport. All I wanted to do is to find out how to hit some guy in the face who was bullying me at the age of 12. That's all I wanted to do. You know, very quickly, it showed me that it was way more than that. You know, it taught me the values of discipline, mindfulness, love, you know, the core principles that, you know, are in boxball today. And that's sort of the similar angle we want to take with schools. I've seen kids from the street come into the boxing gym, you know, big chips in their shoulders, wanting to prove a point. You know, very quickly they're humbled. And I think if you put a sport like boxing into schools from an early age and work with kids who, you know, in particular, that have an attraction towards, you know, gang violence and things like that, you're really like, boxing for me is like a form of meditation. it's not just the physical process of hitting someone. Like I'll do an hour in the pads with my coach, and I'll leave there with the clearest head, ready to tackle the day. For me, I don't think there's a better exercise, not just for your body but for your mind. So that's what we want to show. So we've got some tests. We're working with a company as well in the US who are trying to prove the impactfulness of boxing on the mind through I forgot the name now. Basically through tracking the brainwaves afterwards, and you can see a literal difference between someone's brain activity before and after a boxing class, which is different to that of any other physical exercise, like playing football, or soccer, basketball, baseball, American football, anything like that. It really forces the mind to focus. I think the idea of focusing on a moving object, while protecting your head, protecting your body, moving your feet, while they're trying to hit you, while you're trying to hit back, that it brings mindfulness in a different dynamic than you can do through anything else. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to show. And put that at the forefront of these schools.
Well, Ben, it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of very unique things that I think it's safe to say not too many or any boxing label or company is doing. I look forward to the day where I can see a pay-per-view bout and both boxers are wearing those BoxRaw gloves and shorts. So, Ben, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you guys get there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.